204. The female poet Li Qingzhao. As the Jin army rampaged through the central plains, the southern Song court remained utterly unprepared to resist. Emperor Gaozong of Song indulged in a life of luxury in his temporary capital, Yangzhou. In January 1129, the Jin general Zhonghan led an army southward, capturing city after city. Along the way, southern Song officials either surrendered or fled. The Jin vanguard soon crossed the Huai River and approached Yangzhou. At that moment, Emperor Gaozong was reveling in his palace in Yangzhou. Only upon hearing that the Jin army was closing in did he panic. Grabbing a handful of trusted eunuchs, he mounted a horse and fled at full speed to the riverbank, where he found a small boat and hurriedly crossed the river under the cover of night. The Jin forces ravaged Yangzhou, looting, killing, and burning the city to the ground before withdrawing north with their spoils. After escaping to Lenin, Emperor Gaozong dismissed Huang Qianshan and Wang Boyan from their positions, triggering internal strife within the southern Song court. Sensing the corruption and weakness of the Song regime, Emperor Taizong of Jin launched another large-scale invasion in October of that same year. His general Wu Zhu, also known as Zongbi, captured Jiankang, modern Nanjing, Jiangsu. Terrified, Gaozong fled again, this time from Lenin to Yuezhou, modern Shaoxing, Zhujiang, then from Yuezhou to Mingzhou, modern Ningbo, Zhujiang. Wu Zhu's forces pursued him relentlessly, and with nowhere left to run, Gaozong boarded a ship and fled across the sea to Wenzhou. It was only after the Jin forces withdrew north that he dared return to Lenin. The Jin invasion brought immense suffering to the people. Their violence and plunder, coupled with the Song court's weakness and decadence, resulted in countless families being torn apart. Among those who endured such misfortune was the renowned poetess Li Qingzhao, one of the greatest female poets in Chinese history. Li Qingzhao's early life and literary passion. Born in Liqing, modern Jinan, Shandong, Li Qingzhao was a distinguished poet of the Northern Song dynasty. Her father, Li Gufei, was also a literary figure and had served as an official under Emperor Huizong. As a student of Su Shi, Li Gufei was known for his integrity, which made him a target of persecution by the corrupt Chancellor Kai Jing. From an early age, Li Qingzhao was immersed in literature under her father's influence. She had a deep love for poetry, painting, and particularly the art of Ci poetry, in which she achieved remarkable success. At 18, she married Zhao Mingqing, a scholar official from an aristocratic family. The couple shared a deep intellectual bond. Not only were they both accomplished poets, but they also had a mutual passion for collecting and studying inscriptions on ancient bronzes and stone tablets. These artifacts were not only exquisite works of art, but also held immense historical value. At that time, Zhao Mingqing was still a student at the Imperial Academy in the capital. Though both the Zhao and Li families were well positioned in the government, they were not extremely wealthy. Thus, the young couple did not have much spare money to spend on their collection. However, this did not dampen their enthusiasm. On the 1st and 15th day of each lunar month, Zhao Mingqing would take leave from school, pawn some of his clothes for a small sum of money, and head to Daxiangwo Temple, the largest Buddhist temple in Dongjing, Kaifeng. The temple's market bustled with merchants selling books, antiques, and calligraphy scrolls. Whenever Zhao found an inscribed tablet or an artwork he admired, he would buy it and bring it home, where he and Li Qingzhao would carefully examine and catalog their finds. Collecting and studying these artifacts became their greatest joy in life. Building a collection amidst national turmoil. 2 years later, Zhao Mingqing was appointed as an official. Nearly all of his salary went into acquiring ancient texts and inscriptions. Some of his relatives worked in the Imperial Library, which housed rare and unpublished books. Through these connections, Zhao painstakingly obtained copies of these texts, which he and Li Qingzhao transcribed. Over the years, their collection of ancient bronzes, stone inscriptions, and books grew immensely. To organize their treasures, Li Qingzhao set up an extensive library with categorized shelves and meticulously compiled catalogs. She took great care in preserving these artifacts. Any slight damage or stains were immediately repaired. Through nearly 20 years of effort, Zhao Mingqing completed Jingshi, Records of Metal and Stone, a monumental work documenting ancient inscriptions and artifacts. However, with the country in chaos, their scholarly pursuits became impossible to sustain. When Dongjing fell to the Jin, Li Qingzhao and Zhao Mingqing were still in Zizhou, modern Shandong. As the war escalated, they fled to Jiankang, modern Nanjing, taking with them 15 carts filled with their most valuable artifacts. Meanwhile, Jin forces captured Qingzhao, where Li Qingzhao had left behind several rooms full of rare books and antiques. The city was set ablaze, reducing her collection to ashes. After arriving in Jiankang, Zhao Mingqing was assigned as the governor of Huzhou. Given the instability of the times, Li Qingzhao could not accompany him. Before his departure, she anxiously asked, "What should I do if the Jin forces invade again?" Zhao Mingqing resolutely replied, "Do what you must. If necessary, abandon the furniture and clothing. If it comes to it, even the books and paintings can be discarded. But there are a few ancient ritual bronzes, those must be protected as if they were your own life." Tragically, Zhao Mingqing never returned. Shortly after assuming office, he fell ill with malaria and passed away. A life of hardship and exile. Devastated by her husband's death, Li Qingzhao's greatest concern was fulfilling his legacy by preserving their collection. She entrusted 20,000 volumes of books and 2,000 inscribed stone tablets to Zhao Mingqing's brother-in-law in Hangzhou, modern Nanchang, Jiangxi. However, when the Jin army reached Qingzhao, these invaluable works disappeared without a trace. During Zhao Mingqing's final days, he was visited by a scholar named Zhang Feiqing, who carried a jade flask. As an expert in antiques, Li Qingzhao immediately recognized that the vessel was not genuine jade but a type of carved stone. After Zhao Mingqing's death, rumors spread that he had gifted priceless artifacts to the Jin, further tarnishing his legacy. Li Qingzhao was deeply aggrieved and sought to clear his husband's name, but the southern Song court was in full retreat and offered no justice. Forced into exile, Li Qingzhao wandered across the country. By the time she finally settled in Shaoxing, most of her cherished collection had either been stolen, lost, or destroyed. Only a few tattered scrolls and fragments remained. The devastation of the nation, the loss of precious cultural treasures, and her own personal tragedies left Li Qingzhao in profound sorrow. She channeled her grief into poetry, producing many masterful works that not only showcased her literary genius but also expressed her patriotism and condemnation of the Song court's cowardice. One of her most famous poems bitterly criticized the southern Song rulers for fleeing south rather than standing and fighting. She wrote, "A hero in life, a ghostly warrior in death. To this day, I honor Xiangyu, who refused to flee across the eastern river." This verse compared the cowardly flight of the southern Song rulers to Xiangyu, the ancient warrior who chose death over dishonor. It remains one of the most powerful expressions of defiance and grief in Chinese poetry. 205. Han Shizhong blocks the Jin army. As the Jin forces marched southward, reaching the coast of Mingzhou, they continuously faced attacks from civilian militias along the way. The Jin general Wu Zhu, also known as Zongbi, realized that significant numbers of Song troops still remained along the Yangtze River and decided not to linger. After a brief period of looting, he began withdrawing his forces northward. In March 1130, as Wu Zhu led his 100,000 troops north, he encountered fierce resistance from the Song general Han Shizhong near Zhenjiang. Han, a steadfast advocate of resistance against the Jin, was outraged by their invasion and atrocities. Determined to strike the Jin forces during their retreat, he prepared to mount a major blockade. When Wu Zhu reached the riverbank and learned that Han Shizhong was blocking his path, he sent an envoy to the Song camp, issuing a formal challenge for battle. Han Shizhong accepted and even agreed to a set date for the confrontation. However, there was a great disparity in numbers. While Wu Zhu commanded 100,000 soldiers, Han Shizhong had only 8,000 troops. Han knew that victory depended on superior morale rather than sheer numbers. A tactical plan with his wife, Liang Hongyu. Han Shizhong discussed his strategy with his wife, Liang Hongyu, an intelligent and battle-hardened warrior. Liang supported his plan and insisted on joining the battle herself. Han then gathered his officers and pointed out, among the terrain in this area, the most strategic high ground is the Dragon King Temple on Jinshan, Golden Hill, northwest of Zhenjiang. The Jin army is sure to send scouts there. He dispatched 200 elite soldiers to lay an ambush at the temple. As expected, the next day, 5 Jin scouts rode up Jinshan to observe the Song army. The hidden Song troops waited until the Jin soldiers approached, then struck their war drums and launched an attack. The Jin scouts, realizing they had fallen into an ambush, fled in panic. The Song soldiers managed to capture 2 of them, while the other 3 galloped away at full speed. Among them was a general in a red robe with a jade belt, who in his panic fell off his horse, scrambled back up, and barely managed to escape. Upon interrogating the prisoners, the Song soldiers discovered that the man in red was none other than Wu Zhu himself, the Jin commander. The decisive battle. The long-awaited battle finally began on the riverbank. Both armies lined up for a fierce confrontation. Han Shizhong, fully armored, rode into battle. Meanwhile, his wife Liang Hongyu, clad in military attire, stood aboard a warship in the middle of the river, beating a massive war drum to direct the troops. Inspired by the sight of their commander's wife personally aiding the battle, the Song soldiers fought with unrelenting ferocity. Although the Jin army had superior numbers, they suffered from poor discipline and exhaustion from their long campaign. In contrast, Han Shizhong's forces were highly trained and well-coordinated. The battle turned into a slaughter, the Jin army suffered massive casualties, and even Wu Zhu's son-in-law, the so-called Tiger Dragon King, was captured alive. Realizing his dire situation, Wu Zhu sent another envoy to the Song camp, offering to return all the wealth and treasures looted from the south in exchange for safe passage across the river. Han Shizhong refused. Wu Zhu then offered Han a prized warhorse, but this too was rejected. Unable to cross the river, Wu Zhu led his forces into Huangshendang, a narrow and enclosed body of water, in modern Nanjing, Jiangsu, hoping to find a route to safety. However, to his horror, he discovered that Huangshendang was a dead end, and the Jin army was trapped. A desperate escape plan. As the Jin forces grew desperate, one of Wu Zhu's subordinates suggested, "There used to be a river channel leading directly to Jiankang, modern Nanjing, but it has silted up. If we dig it open, we can escape." Wu Zhu immediately ordered his soldiers to start digging. With 100,000 men, they worked tirelessly through the night and managed to carve out a 50-mile-long waterway by morning. As Wu Zhu prepared to retreat along the new channel, however, he was intercepted by Song General Yu Fei, forcing him to turn back to Huangshendang. For 48 days, Wu Zhu and his soldiers were trapped. Hunger and disease spread, and morale plummeted. Meanwhile, reinforcements from the Jin army in the north were sent to rescue him. Wu Zhu attempted to flee using small boats, but Han Shizhong was prepared. He had Song soldiers waiting in large warships armed with massive iron hooks attached to chains. As the Jin boats tried to cross, the Song forces hooked onto them and overturned them, drowning countless Jin soldiers in the river. The final showdown. Now in complete despair, Wu Zhu personally approached Han Shizhong, pleading for a face-to-face discussion. He begged, "Please, allow us to cross the river." Han Shizhong coldly replied, "Crossing the river is easy. Return all the land you've occupied, and I will let you go." Back in his camp, Wu Zhu gathered his commanders and lamented, "The Song army moves their ships as swiftly as we ride our horses. How can we possibly cross the river?" One of his officers suggested, "We should offer a reward for any plan that can get us out of this mess." Soon, a trader arrived, offering a strategy. The Song Navy depends on wind power to move their ships. If we choose a windless day to cross the river, their large ships will be unable to chase us. The spy also advised Wu Zhu to use fire attacks against the Song fleet. A few days later, a hot, windless day arrived. The Jin army secretly launched their small boats in groups to cross the river. Han Shizhong immediately deployed his fleet to intercept them, but without wind, his large warships were too slow to catch up. At that moment, the Jin army unleashed a barrage of flaming arrows, setting the Song ship's sails ablaze. As the fire spread rapidly, many Song soldiers were forced to abandon ship and leap into the water. With his navy crippled, Han Shizhong had no choice but to retreat to Zhenjiang. Wu Zhu, having barely escaped the siege, led his remaining forces back to Jiankang, modern Nanjing. However, as they prepared to retreat northward, they were ambushed by Yu Fei's forces near Jing'an, modern Jiangning, Jiangsu. Yu Fei's troops inflicted another crushing defeat on the retreating Jin army, forcing Wu Zhu to flee in disgrace. With the Jin army in full retreat, Yu Fei successfully recaptured Jiankang, securing an important victory for the Song resistance.